The Scriptures Are Real podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about elements of the Scriptures that have made them become real to us so that we can draw more power out of them because we need the power of the Scriptures. I'm your host, Kerry Muhlstein, and I am excited to get into Isaiah. I've been so excited to do Isaiah with you for so long, and now we're here. So the purpose of this shortcast, and it's a very, very short shortcast, is to let you know some of the things that we're going to do and to give you just a really, really brief kind of historical background, and then I've got other things. Well, let me tell you the other thing. So I'll also do a video that goes through kind of just a lot of different kinds of background for Isaiah. So this one gives a really short, quick and dirty timeline, and then that will help you with all of Isaiah. Understanding the history and what's going on in Isaiah's day is a huge key to understanding Isaiah. But you've also got another video that will help you understand the just general, lots of background elements to Isaiah. And these are part of a series that has its own introduction where I'm just sharing my class videos with you. So lots of class videos. I'm doing lots of podcasts with other people, and I'll let you know when those are. I'm also doing a number of joint podcasts that will cover topics and introductions, ideas of how to cover Isaiah. I'll do some of that myself. Just general tips and tricks for understanding Isaiah. That's what I have lined up so far, but I'm also dedicated. I'm just going to keep thinking about what might help you better understand Isaiah. Of course, my commentary is a big one, learning to love Isaiah. This is something that it's the only LDS commentary that touches on every verse in Isaiah, and the only one that touches on the original context very consistently, which then allows you to understand other contexts as well. And so I'll use some stuff from there, I'm sure. And I'm trying to think of other things that would be helpful for you. So let's just look forward to doing Isaiah together. This video is designed to just be an overview of the historical and political events of Isaiah's lifetime, because I found that students find it useful to have an overview to begin with, to kind of know where we're heading throughout his life, and then something that they can return to as we go along. You kind of lose track, okay, what happened when, and how did that fit together? So a resource that you can turn back to as you go along. So you may want to just write these, take a screenshot or something when I'm all done with it of the key events, or you can write them down, or you can just come back to the video, whatever works for you. But the idea is that you will have, just a quick and dirty, we should call this the quick and dirty timeline of Isaiah's life, something that just helps you. So Isaiah is a prophet for a very, very long time. His ministry begins in the last year of King Uzziah's reign, and he doesn't have a lot of interaction with Uzziah. They don't overlap by very much. That's about 740 BC. Uzziah's son Jotham reigns after him for 5 years, not particularly important. I'm not going to expect you to remember those years or a lot about that, just to know that he does reign under Jotham. What becomes important is that after Jotham's 5-year reign, Ahaz becomes king, and he rules for about 20 years. And there are some significant things that happens during the time of King Ahaz, namely what we call the Syro-Ephraimite War. Ephraim referring to the northern kingdom. Hopefully by now you know that the 12 tribes have split into 2 kingdoms, roughly speaking, 10 in the north, 2 in the south. In the south is kingdom of Judah, north is the kingdom of Israel, also sometimes referred to as the Ephraimites, all right, because they're led by the tribe of Ephraim. So the Syro-Ephraimite War is when Syria and the kingdom of Israel try to force the kingdom of Judah to join them in a rebellion against the massive empire Assyria. So there's Syria and Assyria, right? So they try to force them into it, even threatening to assassinate the king and so on. So when Judah doesn't join their coalition, and Ahaz nearly does, and Isaiah has some things to say about this, and we'll go more into depth in class, a lot more into depth, but this is just the brief outline. When Ahaz refuses, they go to war against him. All right, so that's about 733 BC. Ahaz appeals to Assyria for help against Syria and the kingdom of Israel, letting them know they're rebelling and they're trying to force me to rebel. As a result, Assyria invades. He destroys Syria, and then he invades Israel in 732 BC. He conquers all sorts of cities. Basically, they submit to him, and he deports a whole lot of Israelites. This is the beginning
of the scattering of Israel, that you have ancestors, I would guess, that were scattered at this point. This is a significant family history event for us as well. This is when many of our Israelite ancestors lose their homeland and are scattered and go to wherever it is that you have ancestors from. In any case, that's an important thing, that the two groups, the two countries, get into a little war with Judah, and then as a result, they're invaded by Assyria. Now, because Judah asked Assyria for help and so on, they become a vassal. They become greatly more dominated by Assyria as a result of all of this. It will be only a few years later that Israel and Syria will rebel again. And so this time Assyria will come in and destroy them both, but especially Israel. They destroy Israel, deport all the tribes. This is the full scattering of Israel. The tribes are deported. They move other people in. We'll talk again more about that in depth. But at 721 BC, so this is all in Isaiah's ministry, the northern tribes disappear. That northern kingdom is gone. So this is key, because the first like 2/3 of the book of Isaiah, he's trying to get the northern tribes to repent so they won't be destroyed. Once they're destroyed, the book will shift significantly. He's not going to need to have that theme anymore, and we'll talk about that as we go along. Hezekiah begins his reign about 715 BC, so this is after the northern kingdom has been destroyed. Isaiah and Hezekiah are very, very close. There's even some speculation that Hezekiah is Isaiah's son-in-law, that Hezekiah married his daughter. We don't really know that, but that's an old tradition. In any case, they're very close, and Hezekiah listens to Isaiah a lot. Hezekiah himself will eventually rebel against Assyria, and Assyria will invade Judah in 701 BC, destroying most of Judah, but Jerusalem is miraculously spared. This will be a big topic of the class. There are several chapters of Isaiah that are dedicated to this, so it will be a big event. But Hezekiah reigns, he rebels, Assyria invades. That's a really big deal. When Jerusalem successfully withstands this, Babylon will visit Judah and start to try and form an alliance, because Babylon also wants to rebel against Assyria, and Judah's the only group that survived that. They only kind of survived it. Most of the country's destroyed, but they did survive it. And so Babylon will begin a rise to power. They will start to become, they will eventually conquer Assyria, not during Isaiah's lifetime, but eventually they will conquer Assyria. And so they begin that rise during this time period, and they will become a big and real concern for Isaiah. That's an important thing to note. In any case, they'll figure quite a bit in the last bit of the book of Isaiah. And eventually, Hezekiah's son Manasseh becomes king, and he traditionally is the one that kills Isaiah because he becomes a wicked king. He co-reigns with his father for a while and seems like he's going to be a good king, but when he's on his own, he becomes very wicked and idolatrous, and tradition holds that he kills Isaiah. So that is your brief overview of Isaiah. As I said, Isaiah dies not long after Manasseh comes to power. In any case, that's just to kind of give you a skeleton to stick all of the stories that we'll do and all of the prophecies that we'll do together. We'll try and contextualize prophecies and when they took place within Isaiah's lifetime and within this historical and political setting. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't, but a lot of times we can get a pretty good beat on it. So I hope that this is helpful for you.